Today we're going to convert this brand new Orbea hardtail mountain bike into an electric bike. And I'm going to show you some of the kit we're going to use. This is the box containing all the electronics, so all I had to do was open up and see what was inside. So, cables and tie wraps, the controller itself, handle grips and the pedal sensor. This is the bike's display, along with the control buttons to turn the bike on and off. The pedal sensor and everything else came already attached to the controller. So this is the 1500 watt motor, complete with cassette, all ready to go. First things first, let's take the wheel off of this one. So now we've got the wheel, just remove the tyre, so I'm just going to take the valve out. Right, okay, so where were we? So let's loosen off this. Take this off completely. So here is the tyre lever. Try this now. This is a bit easier, isn't it? So there we have it. Okay, so let's put the tyre back on to the electric rim. Now this particular one, I am going to have to remove the brake caliper and change it from the hydraulic disc into the cable version. Now you might be thinking, what the hell is he doing that for? Because hydraulic version is better, but unfortunately to turn off the electrical power to the motors, you do need the switch to be active in the brake levers, so unfortunately it's going to be the only way to do it. And also, of course, this particular caliper, if I just show you, the original brake caliper would rub against the hub motor, so this is why I'm going to remove it and replace it with the cable version. I may of course update it in the future with the hydraulic version. So yeah, yesterday I had to do some other bits and pieces. Now fitted the disc to the wheel. We missed that bit. So these are the brake levers I'm going to be fitting, and they've obviously got a switch in them. Now, as you can see there, for cutting the power. So it's important that it has that, particularly when you're dealing with something like a 1500 watt motor taking down a hill. Here are the new brake cables, and it's a question of cutting them to the correct length and also snipping off one of the two types of metal blocks that are supplied for your brake levers. For the levers on this bike, I'm going to keep the round block version. On the ends of the cable outer, I'm going to use these end caps that came with the kit, keeping everything neat. those must be the shorter ones, I think. Maybe slightly longer for the rear brakes. Yes, they are. Okay, good. So let's just take one of these.
And this is the bit I mean about cutting off the end that you don't need, so make sure you choose the right one.
Okay, let's just pull this out because we don't need all this cable, and we want to go to somewhere like here. Oh. Yeah.
The pedal sensor's up next, and this is a mildly tricky one to do. The crank has to come off and then the sensor put on, and it must go the right way around, or you won't get any pedal assist. And you need to use a bit of strength to get this off.
So this, we'll just need to twist with a spanner, and then this should come off. And this part, and that should force the crank off.
Unfortunately, I've mislaid the footage of me fitting the battery onto the bike. It's really not complicated, it simply goes where the bottle bracket is and it's screwed into place.
So what I'm going to attempt to do now is to put the display bracket onto the handlebars. So that bit's in place, nice and tight. So next part, I'm going to do this control panel for the display, and I'm going to mount that right about here where this shiny battery paint is on the handlebars, so it's going to be right about there. Okay, so I've got to a stage where I have put the display on. I put the throttle control on, however it does slightly hit on the gear levers, but not massive amount. You still use it if you need to. So now we've got the battery cables there, which I soldered on just the other day to replace the ones that came in, so they're ready to be connected in just a few minutes. We've got display. I've now connected this up just loosely to start with, just so that we can test and make sure that it all works. I've now connected the controller cable, which comes from the display, which turns that on. This is for cycling assist, which is this one here. So we'll just plug these in. These can only go one way, so in theory you can't get them wrong because they've got this tiny little indentation. So let's see if we can go, so that's now plugged in. So batteries, now these normally make a bit of a pop when they go in. Yeah, so these go in like so. As I say, there's normally a bit of a pop, so nothing on that one. We'll have a look on the battery. Okay, so now for its first test run, all the cables are in.
I had a little bit of an issue a few moments ago as there seemed to be no voltage coming through. It turned out to be the battery connection wasn't pushed in properly, so always check of course. It was now time to see if it worked. The first test was in situ to see if everything was correct and working before the test ride itself. Obviously at this stage, not all the cables were tied into position.
Yeah, these off. Good. Okay, so that's working fine.
So the next thing I had to do was to tidy up the cables. The cables had to be external as there's little room inside the frame. I used black PVC tape here as all the connections were already soldered. What I also did is switch the position of the controller so that the wires were facing towards the handlebars. This mainly was because of the excessive amount of cable. I took the bike on a short journey around the outskirts of Romsey town, probably around 2 miles for its first road test. One problem I found was that the derailleur was not set up properly, and hence the whirring and clicking noises. Another problem I found later was this bike was not really geared to go much faster than around 25 miles an hour, and this became apparent when I reached 32 miles an hour. My legs were spinning like mad while the bike continued to collect speed. Now this bike was built with a 48 volt 13 amp hour battery, which would later allow it to travel 25 miles on one charge. Now if you want to get further out of your bike battery, you'll need to find a battery with a greater amount of amp hours, and I would advise if possible a minimum of 17.5 amp hours. Hope you've enjoyed the ride, and thanks for watching.